You know, sometimes the world just changes overnight. While a lot of us were probably sleeping, a standoff in the Middle East that's been simmering for decades has just exploded into open war. A major world figure is dead, and the shockwaves? Well, they're already hitting us all. And it all started with this one simple sign. For millions of people, this was the first sign that something was terribly, terribly wrong. Dubai International, the busiest airport on the planet for international travel, completely shut down. Flights grounded, thousands stranded. The entire global air travel system just thrown into chaos. So you have to ask yourself, how did we get from a tense, but, kind of stable situation to airports being shut down and serious talk of a wider war, basically overnight? Let's unpack what's going on. Okay, let's start with the immediate fallout, because before we get into the who's who and the politics of it all, we need to understand how this is already affecting real people and economies all over the world. This isn't some distant event you just see on the news. This is being felt right on the ground. Think about it. Singaporeans in a major global hub like Dubai are getting these terrifying alerts pinging on their phones, telling them to seek shelter. They're hearing explosions, feeling tremors. Even food delivery has stopped. This is real, and it's happening now. And it gets bigger. Beyond the travel nightmare, this whole conflict is threatening the Strait of Hormuz. You have to understand, this is the planet's single most important choke point for oil. It's like the jugular vein for the world's energy supply. And suddenly, it's at risk. So you'd expect a quick reaction, right? And we got one. The world's big oil producers, that group we call OPEC+, they got together and agreed to pump an extra 206,000 barrels a day to try and keep the markets from panicking. On the surface, that sounds like a good, responsible plan. But here's the reality check from the experts. A guy named Jorge Leon from Rystad Energy basically said, look, an extra 206,000 barrels is a drop in the ocean. The real problem isn't how much oil you can pump, it's whether you can actually get it safely through a war zone. Right now, that risk is everything. So why is that risk so incredibly high? Well, because what we're seeing isn't some limited, contained fight. The entire Middle East is quickly turning into a firestorm. I mean, just look at this list of targets Iran has hit in retaliation. They are not messing around. They're hitting U.S. bases all around the Gulf. Major cities like Dubai and Doha are hearing explosions. An oil tanker got hit. They even launched ballistic missiles at a U.S. aircraft carrier. This isn't a small-scale fight. This is a massive, region-wide escalation. And the speed of this is just stunning. I mean, things have been tense since last June, sure, but the real flashpoint was Saturday, when Iran's supreme leader was killed. By Sunday, Iran was already hitting back hard, and now strikes are hitting the very heart of Tehran. In just a couple of days, a decades-long shadow war has burst right out into the open. And that right there, that brings us to the core event, the one single action that really lit the fuse on this whole crisis. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, is dead. He was killed in a joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike. To really get how huge this is, you have to realize he ruled Iran with an absolute iron fist for 36 years. 36 years. His death isn't just a political shift, it's the end of an entire era. For over 3 decades, this was the man who shaped modern Iran. He built up this so-called axis of resistance, a whole network of powerful militias in places like Iraq and Lebanon, all to counter the US and Israel. And at home, he was absolutely ruthless in crushing anyone who opposed him. He was the final word on everything. So, when you suddenly remove a figure who held that much power for that long, you create a very dangerous void, which leads to the biggest question of all right now: who's actually in charge? And this is the key concept we have to wrap our heads around: a power vacuum. There's no clear, hand-picked successor ready to step in. The entire structure he built is now up for grabs, and this is all happening in the middle of a war. So who's filling that vacuum? Well, according to experts like Setimir Nestrovic, forget the official lines of succession for a minute. In reality, it's Iran's most powerful military group, the Revolutionary Guards, who are seizing control. And their message is crystal clear. We're not surrendering. We will fight to the very end. Now, a power vacuum like this, combined with a promise to keep fighting, forces the rest of the world to get off the fence. Diplomatic battle lines are being drawn, and they're being drawn fast. And the international community is splitting right down the middle. There's no middle ground here. On one side, you've got Russia and China calling the strikes a cynical and grave violation and demanding a ceasefire. On the other, the US and Israel are justifying what they did, with the US president warning of a force like we've never seen before. Two completely different worlds.
So you put it all together, the war, the power vacuum, this global divide, and it all leads us to a really deeply uncertain and dangerous future.
But in the middle of all this talk about war and politics, sometimes it's one person's voice that really cuts through the noise. This quote from a 25-year-old woman in Iran says so much. While the hardliners are promising to fight to the death, a whole generation is just exhausted. They want a normal, peaceful life, and that simple wish now seems further away than ever. Which leaves us with the final, pretty sobering question. A 36-year-long rule is over. The most extreme hardliners are now in charge, and they're vowing revenge. So are we watching the very first hours of a much bigger, much more devastating war? Honestly, the answer to that is terrifyingly unclear.